the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Sarah Q, would you mind doing a roll call, please?
Town of Ashland, Ms. Barnhart. Present. Mayor Trevette. Mr. Chambers.
Here.
Charles City County, Mr. Patterson. Mr. Adkins.
Present.
Chesterfield County, Mr. Carroll. Mr. Davy. Mr. Engel.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Mr. Petrosky.
Here.
Ms. Schneider.
Here.
Mr. Hilton.
Here.
Goochland County, Mr. Lyle. Mr. Spoonhour. Hanover County, Mr. Davis.
Present.
Ms. Dibble. Mr. Ledbetter.
Here.
Ms. Pritchard. Mr. Waddell.
Present.
Henrico County, Mr. Bast. Reverend Cooper.
He's present.
He's present. Mr. Dandridge.
Present.
Mr. Nelson. Mr. Rogish.
Here.
Mr. Schmidt. Ms. Roundtree. New Kent County, Reverend Hathaway.
Here.
Ms. Pearson. Chair Stewart.
Here.
Powhatan County, Mr. Donati.
Here.
Mr. McClung. Mr. Powers. Ms. Winall. City of Richmond, Ms. Eddings.
Present.
Ms. Jordan. Here. Ms. Knight.
Here.
And Dr. Newbell.
Here.
He'll be here. This is town. This is one more town.
When you to
Fortunately, we do have a physical quorum, so thank you all for being here and being on time. It is very much appreciated. I would like to welcome Anita Barnhart from Ashland, Jonathan Lyle from Goochland. Are we here? We'll welcome him in spirit. Laquan Hilton from Chesterfield, Jerron Dandridge from Henrico, and Priscilla Eddings from Richmond. Thank you all for being here. We look forward to working with you as the business of the commission progresses. All right, and I would like to, do we just have Dr. Newville on for remote participation said?
And Mr. Adkins.
And Mr. Atkins, okay. So Dr. Newville and Mr. Atkins are participating remotely due to a scheduling conflict, so I would entertain a motion to confirm my decision to approve them and participating remotely. So moved. Need a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Dr. Newville, Mr. Atkins, welcome to the meeting. We're glad to have you here in spirit. And I know we have a full room. So I'd like to recognize our guests. If you are not an employee of PlanRVA, would you stand? I see, I know I see at least two of my friends from New Kent, so Miss Em and Mr. Moyer. And welcome. You can introduce yourselves if you like.
Hi everyone, I'm Woody Rogers. I'm Policy Director of the Partnership for Housing Affordability.
I'm Ryan, representing consultant for PlanRVA.
Now, everyone that does work for PlanRVA and CVTA and all of our other organizations, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate all of your hard work in getting us here. A lot went into today's meeting and making it a success that I know it will be, so I appreciate it very much. Sid, do we have any guests online?
That's gonna be getting comment.
Okay. Well, if you are a guest online, we're glad you're here too. Do we have any amendments to the agenda?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I move that we amend the agenda to add item C1B to include a presentation and request for action to approve an updated fund balance policy recommendation. This motion includes a waiver of the 10-day notice requirement to take this action this morning, given the impact of the action on the FY27 budget preparation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, well, thank you so much, Mr. Davis. We will add that to C1B. Anyone here in the public wishing to make a comment? Okay. Well, we will move to our strategic vision section of our agenda. And as we mentioned in our previous meetings, we've adapted the agenda in a way that we're hoping for meaningful flow and purpose of the meeting. So we'll get into what we're all here for today. And I'll turn it over to Ms. Schickel.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So as Chair Stewart mentioned, we talked about this at our last meeting, but again, it's weird to say it in February, but Happy New Year. This is the first time we've been together since 2026. So the agenda materials that were distributed to you and posted online included a number of resources this time. Thanks to Barbara J. Cox and Molly Fry for putting those together for this particular section. There were a lot of links and QR codes in the printed packet that you have. So if you want to pull something up on your mobile device, hopefully that will work for you. If any of the links have broken, just let us know that. But I want to just kind of walk you through a couple of things included in that memo that was included in the packet and what's linked to it. So first and foremost, thanks, Woody, for being here today. You did a great job in reviewing the accomplishments of the region as far as advancing the priorities of the regional housing framework at the January State of Housing event that PHA hosted last month. The slides that Woody presented are included as a link in that packet, and they're posted on our website as well for those that were not able to be there in person. Next in the materials that we provided is a matrix, and we also included that as a handout. So you should have been able to grab a copy of this at the entrance. If you didn't, we can make sure that we can give you copies of that. This is a first cut, so definitely are inviting and encouraging feedback from you of what we understand to be some of the tools in the toolbox for localities and what's being deployed currently across the region. So there are some things that we know localities have already moved forward with and have included as part of their strategy. There are other things that we know are kind of in various stages of review, consideration, in the works, kind of plans for that. So it gives you sort of hopefully a healthy sense of what's going on. We would love feedback on whether the columns here are things that are useful for you to understand, to be able to see what is sort of in place across the region, but also for accuracy to make sure we have accurately captured who's doing what. This is a helpful way for us to understand when a local government is considering a new opportunity. We can refer across the region so that if someone has already walked in this path, you have a resource in the region, but it also is a way to be able to continue to share best practices about what's working and what's maybe the most effective in our various communities.
Martha, I'll interrupt you just for a second to make sure everyone knows I requested her to make this chart. Red, green, and yellow are not indicative of our progress at all. I just needed a very visual way to understand as we look across all of our jurisdictions, what people are doing, what localities are doing, and knowing that our job here as a commission is not to decide what affordable housing looks like in Chesterfield or New Kent or Powhatan, but to understand what role we play in helping the localities achieve their affordable housing goals. So if there's something that you don't agree with on here, this is not written in stone. As she said, this is just our first take at it in a way to just absorb the enormity of what's going on in housing across our region. So I wanted to make sure everyone understood that this was my way of trying to dumb down a very complex topic so I could understand it more easily. So,
thank you. Sort of another way to ground this morning's conversation is the second handout that was provided via link in your packet, but also as a handout. We wanted you to have it at your fingertips this morning. This, thanks to Mr. Ripperton in the back who introduced himself, we received a Virginia Housing Capacity Building Grant earlier this year to help us understand what role PlanRVA can play in the affordable housing space. So a part of that discovery work was to say, well, who's already doing what? Not just in the public sector domain, but for various partners. And so the image at the top of this package just sort of shows you how we're thinking about that continuum or system, I'll say ecosystem of housing activity in the region. And then you can see the more than 60 organizations there mapped. And on the subsequent pages, we've tried to, again, create that sort of rubric or matrix that indicates what organizations are playing in each of those spaces. I'll be honest, on the front end of this exercise, we sort of thought, well, gosh, if we can identify gaps, then that'll help us point the direction of where PlanRVA might, be considered space. You can see there aren't a whole lot of gaps. A lot of the bases are covered. It might be more around connecting the dots on some things or helping to be able to produce more comprehensive information like that so that we can see very clearly who's doing what and don't fall into the sort of the peril of duplicative efforts. So again, this is for your use today. It was not designed to be a public facing document, though we have had some feedback from some of the partners that it was helpful to see. So again, this might be something that we could take a little bit further, not scientific. It was a first brush, kind of doing web research and just kind of pulling the knowledge of folks on our staff, not a comprehensive look at it, but hopefully informative nonetheless. Finally, in the packet, there were also just a highlight of some of the things that PlanRVA has been and is already engaged with regard to affordable housing. So you can see a little write-up about our participation in 2 rounds of funding with Virginia Housing that's produced in the first round, 270 units of affordable housing, bringing those across the finish line. In the second round, another 169 projects. And Molly, I wanted to ask you, is that 169 inclusive of the latest announcement? Is that everything or is there another?
You mean with the second round? Yes, 169 for the second.
Okay, thank you. So we've been, I think part of a great story to be able to bring those units either in an accelerated fashion to market or to be able to make sure that they come across the finish line, particularly in the multifamily deals where the project costs have accelerated due to various conditions. So this really enabled those property developers to have the developer fee that's pretty critical to provide the additional services on site to residents. There's a write-up about the Worth BIPOC Homeownership Initiative that's led by LISC and probably myriad of partners, 40 or so across the region to bring 5,000 new homeownership opportunities to persons that identify as Black, Indigenous, or people of color. That's a Wells Fargo Foundation project. Really, our role with that is to be able to help on the data and tracking side of things. There's a pretty intensive reporting requirement that the data on this project gets submitted to the Urban Institute, and Sarah Adakari has been leading that effort as kind of a technical assistance about how we collect that kind of information and understand it from a performance evaluation perspective. Molly included the Housing Best Practices Toolkit that she created earlier this fiscal year at the request of one of our jurisdictions. And that's continuing to be a living resource that we hope will be something useful to localities. So each of these other kind of tools sort of feed into that, but something that we're continuing to update as new information comes available. You're going to hear a little bit about the market value analysis this morning, but also we'll have a very large public debut on March 13th at the Regional Symposium. So I won't get into too much of that, but that's a really exciting project that through partnership with New Kent County, we've been able to expand the market value analysis, which is a data tool to evaluate the conditions across the region in the market, housing market, and understand, what trends are favorable, what trends are not so favorable, and how those characteristics of neighborhoods look across the entirety of the region. So we're really excited about that. In years past, and currently there's some discussion among our entitlement communities. So those are the localities that get a direct allocation of CDBG, home, ESG. There's probably some other HOPWA acronyms in there, but these are federal housing dollars. There's historically been a requirement for those grant recipients to conduct an analysis of impediments to fair housing. We've provided contract intermediary support in years past so that the 6 entitlements in the greater Richmond metro region could undertake that effort together, as opposed to each contracting that out separately. It becomes a less expensive engagement with a consultant and produces, I think, a higher quality report all the way around. So that conversation is happening among the entitlement community program leads right now to determine whether or not they want to do that joint effort again. And then finally, we linked to information for you about the tracking resources that are available through our partners that are specifically tracking legislation related to affordable housing, but also just in general with VACO as a big partner of ours with legislative monitoring. I'm sure everyone in the room is well aware, there are a number of pieces of legislation that were introduced this session that have to do with affordable housing and affordability in general. Not all are pieces of legislation that VACO feels is in the best interest of local governments. And so that's definitely a topic of conversation, and some have passed through and are advancing, and others have effectively died or been referred to future sessions. So, that's something important to look at. So that was pretty quick, but I just wanted to ground kind of the conversation. I think the hope today was to be able to create a venue and a forum for you as commissioners, leaders across the region to talk about. I think it's apparent to us that in some way, shape, or form, housing affordability is an issue for each of you. And there are many different ways that each of our jurisdictions are thinking about what role local government can and should play in that affordable housing puzzle. And some of those strategies, I think, lend well to moving across jurisdictional boundaries, and others, are really specific to a certain type of issue that exists in a certain locality. And so we wanted to be able to create an opportunity for board members to discuss today. I'll say selfishly, we're hoping that we can glean from the conversation, listening to you all talk, some nuggets that we can incorporate into next year's work program to figure out what role should staff at PlanRVA play in this particular issue. I have some ideas. I can share that slide at some point if Chair Stewart would like me to, but we really wanted to be able to make this an opportunity, as Chair Stewart has said before, for this section to be focused on you as regional leaders discussing an issue that's important in your localities.
Thank you, Martha. That was a lot of words to talk about what we're here for today, and thank you very much. I rely on Martha to expand on my very simple thoughts. So would anyone like to be the brave first person to kick off this discussion? And for the new people here, if this is your first meeting, our intention is to walk away, as Martha said, with a nugget of action. How can we here in the commission be meaningful to the work we do in our home localities? So anyone want to start? I'll say, Jody, you're making eye contact, so I feel like maybe you might want to start.
Probably not. Okay, I'll start. Fine, I'm looking at.
Didn't take much.
I think one of the things that I struggle with is when I talked to Ms. Schickel earlier, I guess it was late last year, but when we look at all of our jurisdictions and the amount of housing that we are adding to each locality, it appears as though we are outpacing population with the number of units that we are adding. And so when I look at that and I say that and I think it's around 5% we're adding housing, and our population has gone up like 3%. So we're actually adding a lot of housing in the jurisdictions, and some people are doing more than others, and there are reasons for all of that. But I guess for me, that's my struggle a little bit sometimes. And we want to build more, which is great. We want to make it more affordable, but we're adding a whole lot of housing. So I guess the help from the commission, that's what I would like to see a little help on from the commission, frankly. So I'm not sure if you looked at me first, so I'll just throw it out there.
And thank you for that. I think that's a great jumping off point, because we know the commission is really a data resource. And that's, I think, a part of this big puzzle is figuring out, I'm sure we track what the population of the region is, where we fall in different levels. But I'm not sure that we track it to how we apply that to what our housing availability is per jurisdiction. So I think that is great. Mr. Carroll?
Since you were brave enough to go first, I'm brave enough to go second. I talked about it in one of the other meetings about some of these pieces of legislation that I put in. And I've actually done something which I think everybody should do, is actually talk to the people who actually build this stuff, the developers, the builders. So when you look at Senate Bill 454 and they want to throw multifamily up wherever anybody wants to put it on commercial, that doesn't make it affordable. It may help on the supply and demand issue, but I just told you that there's plenty of houses being built in the region. Matter of fact, we've had over 30,000 people move into Chesterfield County in the last 5 years. We've seen the most growth. But the conversation that if you really want to do something about affordable housing, the conversation needs to be with the people who are building. And find out from them what actual steps or measures can be taken to help you be able to cut the price of what you're charging for something. Market demand on the value of a piece of property sets the price on a lot before they even put a shovel in the ground. So we did an affordable housing project, an award-winning project in Chesterfield County, Electric Landing, where we actually took county property, donated to the Maggie Walker Land Trust, and utilized different funding mechanisms, some ARPA funds, to actually buy down the cost of those 10 houses. Houses that probably would have cost $350,000 to build, or probably did cost that actually sold for about $175,000. I'm not saying that that model can work every time, but it certainly worked in this case. But if you want to try and figure out how to make things affordable, you got to talk to the people who's actually spending money to build it. And the General Assembly, I don't know who they talk to in some of the pieces of legislation that they passed. I'm sure they probably talked to some developers. I know they talked to HBAR. But the affordability problem is not just a supply and demand issue. It's not, and it goes deeper than that. And if anybody's looked at it, it actually goes back to what happened in the market in 08 and how prior to 08, the market, we were actually building more houses ahead of the population growth. And when the market shifted, that went away and we flipped, where the population growth was actually ahead of what was actually being built. And then, of course, when you have immigration into the country, that's an issue. And then you have corporations buying up the affordable houses to use them as rental property. So there's a bunch of different issues, but I think we need to speak with the people who are building stuff to say, what's the impediment to cutting costs? And what can we do locally? Is there too much regulation? Does it take too much time for us to get you through the process? You know, what things can we possibly do that could help cut the cost? But then you got to hold them accountable and say, well, if we do those things, then you got to cut the cost. And we know that market rate is what sets that. So just my 2 cents is that we need to talk with those people, all of us. Certainly you guys do it on our behalf and get ideas from them that we can kind of work with. And then, well, maybe talk to legislators and say, these are ideas that we've come up with to try to work on this. It's my 2 cents. You were brave enough to go first.
That's a great, thank you, Mr. Carroll. Mr. Rogish had to walk so you could run, and I appreciate that.
So I think along with that, perhaps, and especially some of the legislators that have not been in local government, I think that some education might, and heaven forbid I say that, about the implications of some of the bills that they are creating, because they're not the ones that have to deal with it, it's the locality. And so our PlanRVA as a convener of the local area, I think maybe having a local and state legislative like gathering perhaps to talk about some of their bills before they actually put them forward to and give some information as to, I mean, what by right does to us as localities and ties our hands and doesn't give us any room to shift on some of our and control our own comprehensive plans. And again, this is shocking hearing this coming from me, but that's beside the point. I just think that there needs to be more information and I just don't think that they have that. And so can we do a convening of maybe some of the legislators? I know that's hard sometimes because they're just getting in when they have to start putting their bills down, but I mean, what are they, when they put these things forward, and why aren't the attorneys saying something about it too, I guess, because they're the ones that write up these bills for them. So I don't know, I think that's like a convening kind of situation maybe that we might be able to do before the legislative thing happens, before they put forward their bills and start voting on things.
If I may, I mean, Ashland is in such an unusual place because we are really now a bedroom community of Washington, D.C. Of course, we're surrounded by not just Hanover County, but Henrico County. So the building that takes place in both of those localities certainly affects us, people coming through our town. We almost didn't get here on time today because of the terrain, that kind of thing. So I agree with both of you. It'd be very helpful for people to understand what is happening in a little place like Ashland, because if people don't stop by on 95 and buy the French fries and the hamburgers, I have a hard time finding funds for affordable housing. And especially if this bill goes through, taking away some of the land that I have that is for commercial, I'm gonna have a hard time taking care of the people that I have already, let alone trying to build something for them. So you'd like to chime in?
Well, thank you.
I agree, and understanding the impacts as different things are being considered is an ongoing issue from a planning commission perspective as well as a council perspective. I'm trying to play those out. So these are great points. I'd love to have more collaboration with the legislature.
Similar, I guess, piggybacking off of information, I won't use the word education because I don't want anybody to be offended by it, but just sharing of information. And I know that wasn't your
I know.
intent. That's good. But as far as sharing of information, and even at our level, I find one of the things that I have had to kind of navigate is being a first-term person, the reality that a lot of what I'm seeing now, shovels in the ground, are projects that were approved years ago by my predecessor, right? And so that was a learning curve that I had to say, you know, I went to my planning director and said, please do me a big map. I'm a visual person. Do me a big map of what's already approved that doesn't look like it's approved by, you know, the naked eye, and tell me how many kids that puts in our schools, what the, you know, tax on the infrastructure is and whatnot. And so I can certainly see legislators at an even higher level, you know, they see their districts, and I know, you know, Senator Van Valkenburg is really pushing a lot of these issues. And so even as he's driving around the west end of Henrico, you know, he may not know, okay, this lot is already gonna be, you know, 300 units of so-and-so. And so somehow bringing that information gap of what is already approved and coming down the pike at some point, I don't think we can do anything about the reality that once a zoning is approved, we don't really control. It may take, you know, they can do it quickly or they can do it, you know, years to come. And so there's always going to be some level of conjecture there, but I do think that that's a piece that we don't really talk about enough, which is we're talking about solutions today that don't necessarily contemplate delayed actions that are already in the works.
I can appreciate that as also a first-term person, and a lot of the housing that is being built in New Kent right now was approved when I was in middle school.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's certainly
Very old.
an opportunity for engagement and information sharing.
You know, one of the things I think about is, we want the housing stock, you know, to be cheaper. And people think that adding to the housing stock is gonna make it cheaper, but they don't look at what happens to the public infrastructure, such as schools. We have 67 instructional trailers in my district. For students. And, you know, that has some safety concerns, you know, it has, it has a lot of concerns, right? And, we need to build a new elementary school. So we're trying to balance not receiving the total money that we should be receiving from the state, that formula, you know, that they have, versus what we're really receiving, and understanding that, you know, that would help us out with the new elementary school. Also understanding that if we get kids into the school system at 3 or 4 years old in pre-K, their success rate goes up. And so we need to build a pre-K wing onto our elementary school, but we're not receiving the funding that we should be receiving for public schools. So we're having to shift other money from other places to cover what the state's not providing. And then that's only gonna be compounded if we allow by right, you know, multifamily and other types of development. I don't think we're gonna be able to keep up with from a public infrastructure perspective, we're not gonna be able to keep up with the new population that's coming in. And I'm all for affordable housing. You know, I was vice chair of Partnership Housing Affordability, sat on a few boards for homeless boards, and you know, I've done a whole dissertation on the homeless community. So like I'm a strong advocate for affordable housing. At the same time, being in this seat, understanding it from this perspective, we're just growing. We have the potential to grow too fast, too quick, and the public infrastructure not keep up with it. And that's one of the fears that I have, and that's the kind of questions that I'm having to answer to constituents. even right now, why do we have so many trailers? Why could you all keep up with the infrastructure from the local government level even now, and trying to explain to them that some of it, our hands are tied, we're income. So
I know we have a lot of
Yeah.
those same conversations happening in New Kent right now. I know Reverend Hathaway is shaking his head because we get to listen to this a lot, and a lot of our community doesn't understand the nuances of that balance or imbalance and how that affects them until they see their kids in trailers and they want them in, the brick and mortar building. So we are definitely feeling that as well. Did somebody have their hand up over here? Ms. Miller first, and then we'll work our way around.
So bear with me for a second, because what I'm about to say, I don't think is all that politically popular or appropriate. I have done a lot of research on this, and what I have come to believe is that when we're talking about affordable housing, we're talking about attainable housing, we're only talking about the symptom, but we're not talking about the problem. And that is where I go into a belief that part of the problem is asking what is in our control and what is not in our control. And what I am thinking about are those things like, do we have in this country a livable wage? Do we have in this country where the woman is getting paid what a man should be getting paid? And then connected with that, looking at it honestly, truly, when we look at is the different demographics, African American versus people aren't getting paid what they should be getting paid, and it's unequal. And I know that's not an easy thing to hear, but I'm gonna at least say it and lift up that mirror as to what's going on. So what is in our control? Are we as a group willing to say that if you have a company that is over so many employees, you have to publish what their salaries are, and let's make it transparent. I mean, after all, we work for the government, they know how much we're getting paid, and I'm curious to know, would private companies, private businesses be willing to do that too? Because frankly, I'm really tired of seeing that difference between what different folks are getting paid. And it is not transparent, it needs to be out there. And that is not an easy thing to say, and it's not an easy thing to hear, but I think that when we're thinking about housing, we're talking about an issue around what is really going on. And that's what bothers me so much. We can put in a sunset clause so developers aren't sitting forever on a property. We have things that have been zoned since the 80s and they have not been started on. Come on, that needed to be happening a long time ago. But believe me when I say this, and I think you get it, trickle down economics doesn't work. We have a lot of folks that are sitting at the top of it, of this food chain, and they're not doing it. No kidding. I sat with constituents yesterday and they said to me, when you have a surplus, then we want our money back. Well, rule number one, it's not a surplus until all bills are paid. Let's just say that. And the other part of it is we went ahead and we returned some of the money. It was what, a 15 million or a $30 million surplus. We returned half that money. But someone who is sitting in $1 million home is sitting around saying, I want my $30 back. And that is ridiculous. And I said that to him. You're right, it's your money. But $30, is that really gonna make a difference? So I just want to kind of put it out there that trickle down economics doesn't work. And then we have a very large part of our society right now who is holding on to most of the money and they're not bringing it down. But we also need to get real as far as, are we willing to say to businesses when you come in, we're looking for transparency. So when people get hired, they're getting hired at the rate equal to what other people are getting. And there isn't this unconscious bias going on. And that's what appears to be going on. Businesses will get away with paying as little as they're able to pay to make sure that they can meet the bottom line.
Thank you for your contribution. And this is a safe space here in the commission. And I'm glad you are willing to stay. Hey, some have to be. I'm glad, I appreciate your willingness to say the hard stuff to say. And know that, all of our jurisdictions are feeling parts of that as well. So I appreciate that. Mr. Petrossi?
Sure.
Feels appropriate as Dr. Miller's planning commissioner that I should follow that. I'll be next. And round out Chesterfield, I think. You want to hear from Chesterfield after this one. So I actually want to piggyback on something that Mr. Carroll spoke to. I think a lot of the focus is often on how do we get new zoning approvals for housing, which we have to focus on, but I feel like often less focused on, and maybe more importantly, is once it is approved and it's in that pipeline that's been referenced several times for maybe 5, 10, 20 years, how do we help get them from, they've got their zoning approval, now we want the homes coming out of the ground and we don't want it sitting there with nobody aware that housing is waiting to be built in that location. So, eliminating some of the red tape, maybe PlanRVA can have data or analytics to share with, and to Mr. Carroll's point, the legislators to say, well, here's why we're not building housing, because they have to do, A, B, C to Z to get all these permits and this and that, and it takes them 5 years to build a project. How do we reduce that time so we're seeing it come out of the ground quicker once we have approved zoning?
I think that's a really nice dovetail on focusing on what we can control, because I know some of it, and for New Kent, we've redesigned our planning department a little bit to streamline some of that regulatory stuff that has to happen. And I don't think we're quite where we could be, but we're better than we were. So I think that's a very nice fine point to put on what we can control. Reverend Hathaway?
Yeah, with New Kent, one of the challenges we had, we're growing so fast, but right behind that explosive growth is the commercial. And the challenge that we're seeing is that we have employees who work in New Kent, but have to commute an hour to an hour and 45 minutes, some living down in Chesapeake. And so the turnover with the employees is really great. And our problem is not in housing availability, it really is an attainable workforce housing. And that's something we really got to do. When we talk to developers, they're telling us best case, we're looking at 24 to 36 months once they get approval before you see a house. And at that point, the need has really grown. And so that's a real challenge for us.
Absolutely. Ms. Jordan, did you?
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate everyone's comments so far. I mean, in Richmond, we have a very high rent room. So we really do need to be adding units at all price points. And if I were to put out like a big idea, which I think is kind of part of the purpose of this section, is there any chance of having a regional building code? Thinking about something of that level, which I don't say lightly because it would be very complicated, I think would help attract builders here because they knew if I'm investing in this region, I don't have to figure out how Chesterfield does it versus Richmond. And maybe that would help accelerate some of, or decrease some of the costs associated with trying to build. And then thinking about, we do have a lot of multi-unit construction and it's almost always targeted towards rental. It's hard to attain the American dream if you're never really building equity. And I have talked to builders, I think, and Mr. Carroll, you're 100% right. They'll tell you what the roadblocks are for them to build more affordably. And a lot of it has to do with specific building code issues, the secondary stairwell, things like that. What can we do with our building code to bring down those costs so that we can start to have some more entry level home ownership, because 10 housing units is awesome. But like, that's just for Richmond, not gonna cut into our needs. So that would be my idea. And then I know as localities, we all have our own legislative packages. And this is just a question I don't know the answer to. Do we as a commission ever try and align our legislative asks so that we can come as a body with the full weight of our localities?
That's a good point.
So I know, and Ms. Schickel, correct me, because I've only been on the commission for 2 years, but I don't think that's something I know we don't do that currently. But we do have our respective VML VACO that do something like that, with input from all of our communities. But I think that's something we could certainly talk about more of doing. I don't know where I would rely on her expertise as where that kind of fits in our role of giving recommendations like that in a package. And you don't have to respond now, you can think about it and come back to us. But I think that is certainly, as we talk about this, how we formalize if we're making a recommendation as a commission to something, where does it go and who hears it and who acts on it? So it's kind of the step function of solving a problem that's out there. Mr. Carroll?
I actually asked for legislation years ago to put sunset clause on zoning and, so we do it. So I had a zoning case in my district, which was a landfill from 1984. And it sat there for years. And meanwhile, we had a bunch of subdivisions grow up out there. And the next thing you know, in 2019, they come forward with an application to do a construction landfill. And they approved it. The board had to take a vote on it. There was no way to stop it because it was already zoned for. And so now you have a construction landfill in western part of Hull Street that I constantly get complaints on from the smell. And I was at a meeting last night for 2 hours with constituents on a zoning case from 2006. And had to explain to them about how the comprehensive plan works. So but I will tell you that, you know, my experience on Rally Day and speaking with legislators, and one in particular who's a friend of mine, who I'll not name, but that person, even as a legislator right now, is said to me, I cannot believe the disdain that the General Assembly has for local government right now.
That was actually, had it written right here to say it, so you took it out of my mouth. His actual words were the disdain for local authority is off the chart in Richmond.
And so one of the things that I think would be helpful is for all of us to make sure that we don't wait for General Assembly session time to come up to actually meet with our legislators. And they need to understand, because I was there, I testified on Senate Bill 791, they killed it, it's a good piece of legislation, would have helped given us a tool to control growth. And then one of the legislators responded back to one of my citizens saying, well, Chesterfield's lying, they already had the ability to kill a zoning case based on insufficient infrastructure. It's a flat out lie on the legislator to a community member. But what I really think is not an intentional lie. I think it's someone who just doesn't know what they're talking about. And that's just not knowing what the rules are because you've never served a local government. So do I think she meant to lie? No. Do I think she misunderstands what the law is as a legislator? Yeah, absolutely. So we need to educate them more about our stuff. And I wholeheartedly agree with some of the stuff that's been said about sharing more information between localities. Could we come up with, there's a uniform building code already, which is around the whole state, but the process of someone's zoning ordinance is what creates the problem for everybody. You know, I hear it, you hear it, build a, so I want to build over here because I don't want to deal with that community because their ordinance is crazy, or I don't want to deal with that one. And so, you know, we could also have that conversation as well.
I was saying thank you for that very astute observation. I've spent the majority of my career thus far working in the General Assembly building, so I deeply understand the sentiment. When I decided to run for supervisor, all of my mentors said, don't do it. And now they get to hear about everything that's going on at our locality level. And I've used that as an opportunity for education and information sharing, because the problems that we face are every day. I don't get to go to the Lenexa Plaza for gas without seeing someone that lives in my district. And that's just a different experience that they maybe don't have on the state level. But I do think that is a very wise recommendation, is to get to know our legislators, especially in the House of Delegates. The rate of turnover is very fast. So the investment of time that you spend, and this is totally my personal opinion and not the opinion as chair of PlanRVA, but the time that you spend investing in that relationship does help the local level, because you build that level of trust. And so when you say something, they know it's not a lie, know it's not an intentional lie. So I would encourage all of us to take that as a bit of a responsibility here. And then as this effort with the commission grows, you know, I didn't know that people knew what PlanRVA was at the Capitol, but they do, and they know that that is a level of credibility. When you say this is a PlanRVA piece of data, I think that means a lot. And so as we build this effort, this is only going to get bigger and more useful to the folks at the state level. So thank you, Mr. Carroll. Now, does anyone have anything to put the cherry on top of this very fantastic discussion? Did every locality get to chime in that wanted to?
I would just say that I think what you're wanting to see this might have come from a comment that I made, and seeing this helps me a lot too. So thank you for asking.
No, absolutely, and it did, because this all started from our very first executive committee meeting for this year's leadership team, when we were like, we're not doing anything for affordable housing. And I was like, Oh, yes, we are. So thank you, Martha, for bringing this, very quick conversation into life here with a work product. But if no one has any, go ahead, Mr. Waddell.
To continue with Mr. Miller's not political correct comments and stuff, thanks for opening that door. Couple of thoughts just popped into my mind. I'm unaware that Virginia or any localities have development impact fee schedule. Maryland, I'm told, does. I did some research years ago and Maryland does. And at the time that I did that, it was something $23,000 per single family home for the development impact fees for schools, roads, infrastructure, police, that sort of thing. We've got proffers, which are voluntary, but the time that when I look at some of the proffers for some of the developments, they're really inadequate. And of course, the developers will say, well, you've got to get the houses built and real estate taxes, and then they'll fund the infrastructure, which I think is totally backwards. We've had to deny a couple of rezoning applications because of bad roads, inadequate roads. And another thought would be set asides, or not, I'm sorry, wrong word. I've seen some developments in also in Maryland where you'll have a townhouse community of a certain average square footage, and I'm just gonna make up some numbers like 20,000 2,000 square feet. And they had smaller affordable houses on the end units that were about their starter homes, about 1,200 square feet per, that were set asides for affordable housing with income requirements, ownership requirements, and resale requirements. That could be a possible incentive for developers that if we're gonna approve 100 townhouse community, a little bit of additional density with that being one of the requirements, but also limit it to about 2 bedrooms so you don't overwhelm the neighborhood schools and stuff. And kind of develop, circling back to development impact fees. I know we do a school assessment of the impact of development, but I think it's way too conservative. When I've read some of the surveys, you're only gonna have 27 students over the course of the next couple of years. I think it's way too conservative, and I don't really have the answer there. But second guessing or getting a second school prediction, because it gets out of hand, and maybe with the cost of housing, you may have extended families living in the same house where it's 3-bedroom house, but you're gonna have more than 2 or 3 kids in there. And I agree with Ms. Schneider's comments and Mr. Engel's comments about the disdain at the state level. They really don't know what's going on. And to all your points.
I did not say this.
Kevin and I said that.
I say you can blame it on.
I said it and no one's ever confused us.
I would say though, Mr. Waddell, that the impact fees, unless they were already in place, I believe by 2018, not positive on the year, are prohibited by state law.
It was
Proffers
2014.
are, huh?
It was 2014 and
Okay.
amended in 2016.
So you can't add impact fees, but at the same time, if you did add impact fees or increase the proffers, you're also increasing the cost because that gets passed to the person buying the home, which goes against trying to make it more affordable. So there's a catch-22 in all of this.
Yeah.
I understand that it's not, but if the state legislature wants to make things more equitable, then it comes with its costs. But that would be a step in the right direction, because I realize it's illegal, but I really don't see that it's solving the problem to allow small proffers when the real development impact is there. And the realtor boards will fight you on that. But
well, if to Mr. Hilton's point, if the state was properly funding each locality and not putting unfunded mandates on us, we would have ability to be able to affect the infrastructure that we need to be able to affect. So I think actually Mr. Hilton or Dr. Hilton actually touched on the real problem is that the state makes rules the county has to pay for. And the county already is behind. And then they put more stuff on us that cause us to be more behind. And it doesn't, and then they'll say something like, there's no impact on the state. Well, there isn't an impact on the state. It's on the localities. And if they properly funded us for the mandates that they put on us, and they removed the mandate if the funding stopped, we wouldn't be having nearly as many of these conversations today.
And I think that this puts a very nice cap on get to know your legislators, be in their ear like a gnat, because I can guarantee you when it comes up, if you have been consistently on them about it, they will remember it. Not they will act on it, but they will remember it. So I will preach that to the choir. Make sure you know who your legislators are, you're talking to them and you're sharing. Even if they don't do anything with it, you have shared it with them and it does not go unnoticed. And Mr. Rogish, I'll let you have the last word since you had the first one. So take us home.
No, thank you, Madam Chair. I just, it does a little bit bother me that there's the word disdain and the frustration maybe from the General Assembly towards us in the localities. And again, I just would ask the commission to help with some of the data, like I said, originally, from what I've seen in the last 6 years, we have as a region increased housing stock by over 5% when population has increased by only about 3%. So it's not building more supply, it's all the other things that everybody has said and Dr. Miller and what everybody has said that is causing some of the affordability problems, but it's not necessarily that we as the localities aren't building units. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all very much. I think this has been a great, I took this many notes, and I know Martha has taken many more. This is going to be a great, not jumping off point because we definitely already started this conversation, but a way to narrow the path of how we navigate. And I will invite Dr. Adhikari up to the podium. He's going to give us a data-driven overview of regional housing challenges and trends. And I hope that what he says is the data aspect of everything we have just humanized here. And if not, we'll figure that out. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair and distinguished members of the board and everyone in the room today. I'm happy to present some of the data behind all the discussion we just had, and it definitely makes me happy that the board is so much aware of everything happening around the housing ecosystem in the region. So I would try to substantiate some of those arguments you all made with the data that we have. I have to talk loud. Okay. I used to teach students of 30, so I should be fine. So I'm not going to touch on everything that is related to housing. And we have discussed everything already. I think that includes most of the issues that I wanted to discuss today. We all know, as it seems, prices are rising. We are losing affordability. We have a severe income inequality, which is real. Reduced affordability, which is also impacted by some investor purchase, which is also causing some displacement risks. And eventually, it's causing commuting problems. We are forcing some families to live further away, disconnected from their jobs. It's creating a workforce problem now in the region. And we are seeing some market supply come through in the recent years. But do we know if the supply is happening at every price level or just a segment of the price level? So those are some of the questions that I wanted to support with data. To start with, we recently completed our third market value analysis, MVA, actually, 2 days ago, we had our final presentation from the consultants. So you all are probably already aware of MVA because we have done it the third time. First one was 2017, the second one was 2022 and 2025. Are we calling it 2026? Third one. So in a nutshell, what MVA does, they look at housing prices, affordability, and other distress indicators and market indicators within the region. And then they try to classify into 9 different market categories. Those 9 look like a lot, but we can understand them as basically 3 categories. The first third is a strong market with high prices, people willing to pay, and market functioning at its best. Mostly home ownership, even some renter ownership as well, but high-end, expensive. The middle market, the middle segment is, for example, the C, D, and E alphabet represented there on the map. They are mid-level markets with increasing prices, but still some stock that is available at a lower price point, but it is churning really fast. The middle market is where there is a threat to affordable units. There is threat for displacement. We're losing cheaper units, affordable units really fast, and they are being converted into expensive units really fast. The middle market is where the game is at its best right now. And the weaker markets, the F, G, H, and I, it used to be I in the past previous MVA. We no longer have I. Instead, we have A+. Basically, we have shifted our market 1 level between 2022 and now, meaning that we have become expensive. And this lower segment of the market is where most of the affordable units are, but those neighborhoods are not fully serviced in a way in terms of amenities. Normally, that wouldn't be the first priority for people to go and live, but there are affordable units.
I'm so sorry, could you zoom in? It's, we don't have it in our documents. And it's hard to see what the.
I will try to, but it's.
Is there a QR code for this presentation?
So, sorry, as Saren said, the data were just delivered to us on Tuesday. So I think what we can do is send out the material that will be in the dynamic maps as soon as it's available. The screenshots, because of timing, are kind of the best we were able to do for Tuesday and today. But would that be helpful if we send it out, follow up afterwards? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Saren, I'll just note we are running short on time.
Yeah, thank you, Martha. I'll go fast. So bottom line, again, prices have risen, and you can see the numbers to substantiate your own theories, which are not incorrect. And the market types between past period and now, they have increased home prices. And as you can see, the weakest market, the G, H, and I, H and I, they have the highest growth in sales prices. They are becoming more expensive. And if those information were not enough, I added a third one to make sure that everybody understands the market has really shifted. This graph is also telling basically the same story. What is the price of housing today in the same market category as 2022? And then we've looked at this graph a couple of times, maybe some of you, who is able to afford or who is not able to afford housing in the region. And as you can tell, the 50% AMI, 80% AMI, even 100% AMI, they are not under the affordability limits of what housing price is in the region today. So basically, we're talking about everyone working in the service sector or manufacturing, production, general administration. Their income would not be enough for them to afford housing in the region. Knowledge workers, they can still afford housing. And some of the other sectors, occupational sectors, I have not included because now they easily afford, who are on the right side of the graph. These are some series of maps we have, the reinvestment fund has produced to give us an idea where can a 80% median household income earners can afford. And that is only one little block group in New Kent that is lighting up. 100% median household income. There are a bunch of block groups lighting up, but all mostly on top of the weaker markets, the H and I markets. This is for the 120 median household income, still centered around the core city area and the G, H, and I markets. And 200% median income, they can more or less afford the entire region. Another point that I would like to add is the investor sales. We all know that's happening, and this map just gives us an idea of where that is happening. In terms of rent, rents have risen as well. So far, we talked about the homeownership market. Rents have also risen really steep. So this is a graph that compares 2015 to 2024. And if the rents had only increased indexed to the inflation of the money, it would have followed that dotted line pattern. But it actually follows the solid line, which means the rent is increased beyond what inflation would have increased. We also did a little bit of eviction analysis, where the rents are increasing, where the industrial purchases are happening, and does it relate to evictions? Our team members, Elizabeth and Eddie worked on this. Yes, there are more evictions where there are rents are high and investor purchases high. And this is a map that shows risk of displacement. Displacement is measured by if you are earning your certain income in 2015, for example, and if you kept on earning the same income just indexed with the inflation, are you able to afford a house in your neighborhood today if you happen to sell the one that you are living in? And the answer is no, you can't. You have to move somewhere else. And coming back to, I just added these few maps quickly when I was sitting there because I heard the commuting pattern. It was not intended to be shown today. We did it a long time ago, it hasn't been revised, but there is an indication that our region is really growing bigger. People are commuting from further away who work in the city, the three big localities in the center. Those folks are commuting from far away. The distances have increased. Now, the good part of I'm not going to talk only the bad, sad stuff. The good stuff is we are growing. This is a building permits map, and you can tell permits are being pulled out from everywhere. There are pockets in the region where there is heavy construction that is either going on or going to happen. There are new constructions in certain pockets. Not in the market areas that we would prefer them to be, but there are construction happening, a lot of them outside, mostly in the high A, B, C markets. I borrowed some of these graphics from the PHA presentation, and this one is in your packet. So basically what this tells is we are increasing supply and we are stabilizing housing market. It's not the housing is staying longer in the market. There are more choices for buyers if they have money. Similarly, on the rental side, vacancy rate is increasing, which means rental prices are going down, which means the rental market is stabilizing, again, for those who have money. And there are some other initiatives going on in the region, as you already discussed earlier, the Worth Initiative and all the partners that are part of the program to improve homeownership in the region. And There is more in the packet that Molly has put together that you can take a look at. So bottom line, I'd like to leave with the same statements that I started with. Rents are high, supply is getting better, higher, but supply is not supplying to the buyer who under 100% AMI income or under 20% AMI. There's a lot of supply in the high end of the market, but not at the lower end, which means some intervention is needed. Otherwise, the market alone cannot pull that gap, cannot make that gap smaller. I would take any questions. Yeah, yes, please.
During COVID, $5 trillion got pumped into our economy, $5 trillion. Has any study been done to identify a breakdown of where that money ended up?
I'm not aware of.
You mentioned that the rental market is stabilizing and going down. Why is that?
Well, it's not going down. It's stabilizing to about pre-pandemic levels.
Okay.
There are, number one, as this graph shows, there's one chart that has been hidden, is apartment construction has picked up. There are the permits that have been taken out in the past 3-4 years. Those are now starting to hit the market. The units have started to hit the market. But what this one does not tell you is rent stabilization doesn't mean that there are cheaper units available. There are units available.
Do we know when the last time was that the criteria and the were, as well as what is put into calculating AMI has been updated or changed? I mean, there's so many things that when when they started all this, as far as the cost of living, that have changed, like people having to pay for daycare and people having to pay for cell phones and people have they adjusted that rate?
No,
Wow.
I mean, they adjust it every year. The method doesn't change, the rates change. So this one, I think HUD has recently, as recent as 2024, we have the updated numbers from HUD that define the MSA level AMI.
I would just, I guess I think I was reading something about how they haven't updated the criteria of what they include in those numbers. I mean, it's just housing and clothing and transportation. They don't include a lot of things that have been added into our daily lives that.
Yeah,
So then that's why there's the disparity right now, why the AMI is, the housing is available, but people can't afford. At the 120%, I mean, they still can't afford where the housing is at.
As far as I know, I think the AMI calculation does include how much you spend and how much you earn. To what extent it does, I'll have to go check. But the one thing I know is HUD hasn't changed their methodology for a long time.
Correct, yes.
To continue the AMI question, that's a HUD.
Yeah.
That's the HUD.
It is.
How does that compare to regional or local AMI indices?
It does not. So AMI is MSA level. So MSA is our region plus part of South Side. Sometimes is going down to Sussex or Surrey. And I said sometimes because MSA boundaries keep changing. OMB, Office of Management Budget. They determine the MSA extent based on how much economic activity is happening between the core and the surrounding areas, how much commuting is happening. So based on that commute share and economic activity between localities, they determine who is part of the MSA or who is not. And that definition does not change the core, but it sometimes changes the members in the fringe of the MSA. But when we talk about MSA average, it will not align with our PlanRVA regional average, or it will be higher because the MSA is taking some of the averages down. But we still use it for our analysis because one logic that we apply is even if we are talking about MSA compared to Richmond region, Richmond region has 95% of the population of the MSA. So we are just losing out the 5% that are outside.
I'm inferring that the HUD AMI is overinflated where the local or regional AMI would be more realistic.
Yes. No question about it.
Yeah.
So continuing that premise, then we're artificially excluding people from consideration for what's affordable.
Logically, yes.
Is there any way that we can recommend a regional or local jurisdiction AMI in consideration?
That is very doable, and as you have seen, because of that reason, the MVA calculates their affordability not based on the AMI, but based on regional medians.
Oh, this is regional
Yeah.
AMI.
This affordability map is based on the regional median, not the AMI.
Okay, then it's regional across the 9 plus.
Across the 9.
Okay. Would it be, and digging even deeper, would it be more representative if each individual locality's AMI was applied?
Yes, yes. If we are to analyze housing market in one individual locality, we would be better off getting AMI for that individual locality or the median for that individual locality, because the regional median can still wash out.
Screw it.
Yeah.
Skew it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Your first word was more perfect.
40.
Thank you, Sarah. This has been
Thank you.
a really, really great addition to the conversation that we had. And if this is an overstep, tell me, but I think he would be willing to answer any further questions offline if we have them, because I know this has sparked some enthusiasm among our membership. So
Yeah.
Awesome. And we'll move online to our virtual world. We're gonna have Holly Gordon, the Senior Community Engagement Manager, give us a few minutes on the community voice. Holly, are you there?
I am. Hello.
Floor is yours.
Thank you. So I'm here for just a short update about our engagement practices, and that is quite a sobering presentation to follow. Thank you, Serene. I have lots of thoughts on that as well. But at the end of my 4 slides here, I have an invitation for you all to help continue this conversation. So I come here every meeting to just give you an update about where we have been as far as where our staff are going, what kind of engagement opportunities we are participating in, and how we're spreading the word and getting people's input on the plans that we're all making for the future. So this is just a sampling of some of the places we've been in the last month and a half. Some of these are very specific to particular plans. Like the Blackwell Evolves group was a targeted event for our transportation plans that are open. Sometimes they are professional development related, where we are presenting on or learning about something, such as on this next slide, some of our team went to DC for the TRB annual meeting as a transportation conference. And so we are both local, regional, and statewide and national sometimes. And then sometimes they're convening roles. So when we're participating in things like the Virginia Resilience Reception or the PHA State of Housing, where we're connecting with others. And last night was a very beautiful presentation at the ICA for the City of Richmond Sustainability Office. So it was lovely to see many of our partners there celebrating the success of that office. And I think some of the people in the room here today were also there. I had a wonderful conversation with the cashier who saw my name tag and asked about PlanRVA and is a student in urban planning and had so many thoughtful questions and is now coming to our symposium next month. So that was a lovely connection I had last night. These are some of the plans that we have active currently. When I last saw you all, we were wrapping up the natural resources plan priorities. So it was a second input out to the world, asking people to prioritize what they wanted. So that is complete as of January. And then we're about to launch into quite a few things. So we're transportation heavy in this first quarter. In the next 2 to 3 months, we will be actively collecting input on 3 pieces of our transportation program. The TIP, which is the money that is funding for projects that are happening now, so present projects, real money in real time. And then the long range plan is the future plan, right? What are we doing for 20, 25 years down the road? And then the safety plan is what are people's thoughts on behavior and infrastructure and how do they feel about safety in the region? And so these are all kind of laying over top of each other, and we should have materials to share about this on our engagement website either now or soon. And so that QR code goes to engage.planrva.org, which is where you can share and download resources to spread to your communities as well. And then in March, we will kick off a grant that we are partnering with the Central Virginia Waste Management Authority to identify recycling. So how can we figure out how recycling is happening in the region and provide some data to inform what CVWMA might do about recycling programming that they will continue going forward. And then this last invite is something we've been talking a lot about today, which is to our regional symposium on Friday the 13th. It's scary not to plan for our region's future. So come and be scared and then learn some great tools about how to think about it in a way that's less scary.
But you're scared already.
Yeah, did you listen to our last presentation?
So this will be the first unveiling to the public truly of the MVA tool. And as you've already seen, it's quite deep. And so what we are trying to make this day is a little more accessible to folks about how do I learn how government works? How do we bring people together, both experts, but also residents and students and nonprofits and people who care about this work to learn from each other, connect, and figure out how to be an effective voice in government. And so in the morning, we'll talk about our housing. We'll have a locality panel discussing how that MVA data has been relevant to them. And then in the afternoon, we'll talk about all those different kind of transportation plans. There might be a fun cake activity, so hold please on that because that's kind of in the works at the moment. But a chance to come together, and we're being hosted by Hanover County at the Richmond Times-Dispatch location in Mechanicsville. And there should be flyers for these things in our lobby if you need a physical copy, but you can also pull it right from the banner on our website if you go to our planrva.org. That's
Thank you, Holly. That was really fantastic and not frightening at all. So thank you so much and appreciate you being here in spirit. We will move on to section C of our agenda. And we took action in our executive committee to change our executive committee date from April 9th to April 16th. And I would entertain a motion from anyone here on the full commission to do the same for our full commission meeting, canceling the April 9th meeting and changing it to April 16th.
So moved.
Second, anybody?
Second.
All right, all in favor of changing the April 9th meeting to April 16th? Say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Just don't vote. Thank you, guys. All right, and then second, on our chair report, I will turn it over to our finance chair, Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ladies and gentlemen of the commission, this year, not dissimilar to other years, as we prepare for the budget, we look at a number of different matters that affect the PDC. But one of particular importance over the years and has kind of come front and center again, last year to this year is our reserve balance and what we need to have reasonably in a reserve balance. So as many remember, last year there was a number of issues that came before not only this body, but back in your localities where certain funding was frozen. We went through a government shutdown that was a little prolonged. And again, that's not dissimilar to other years, other administrations, other times in history. However, what is different is some things have changed with this organization where we needed to address this and realize that we needed to move rather quickly on that. Not because we were in any trouble, but because as times change, our strategic plans need to change as well. So our reserves are not where they need to be now, but we do have a plan that we'll present to you to get them where they need to be. Again, this wasn't due to any fiscal mismanagement. It was due to changes in our financial environment. So a number of things came up last year. One of them was we started working on how we're going to approach accepting grants and accepting work and contracts and what that might look like. And this body said, if the money doesn't come in, then the work ceases. And I believe that's very prudent. So we placed that into an initiative to make sure that as we move forward, the executive team on staff, as well as our legal team, and of course through the leadership of the chair, that continues to be the case. We moved on to how we were going to handle reserves and what reserves needed to look like. So, as you know, we're absent a profit motive in this organization. So unlike the private sector, having all cash reserves at a very high level wouldn't be prudent. It would tie up too much money. And of course, there are some other laws that would keep us from having certain funds in cash reserves and earning interest off of it, federal grants and so on and so forth. So we came up with an initial strategic plan to present to the full commission. Has gone to the executive committee after first coming from the finance committee and received their endorsement to move forward. We think right now as we're moving forward to get to a period where ultimately we'll have 6 months worth of reserves, that the initial plan in this strategy would be to balance that between 50% cash and 50% receivables. We are a receivable organization, and Ms. Schickl's talked about it. You can look at our finances at any given time when we have that influx of cash, a lot of which is dedicated to work coming out at a later date. It doesn't always give you a full picture of where we are. So at some point we look cash flush, but that money is going to be dedicated to work that needs to be produced by this organization. So we believe right now sending a recommendation to the full commission of our strategic plan to get to the first 3 months by the end of 2027. That'll be the uphill climb. That'll be the uphill climb. And we want to do that. Thank you, Sid. If you look on the screen, you'll see what I'm talking about, right-hand column down at the bottom, the 50-50. We don't know ultimately what that might look like for the organization. I've said, it could be a 42-58 or a 58-42. What we do know is that an 80-12 is not where we need to be. And keep in mind, 6 months, I think, in many organizations, particularly if you're coming from your home locality or you have your private sector business, doesn't seem like much. If we had to operate this organization for more than 6 months with no income coming in other than say the 50% of our receivables, there would be greater issues throughout the region. You would see impacts back home. And again, because we're absent a profit motive, this is not a plan that you would see in the private sector, nor would you see a plan this robust probably back at home because different revenue sources come in. So you're going to see a balance, and I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Shepherd. You're going to see a balance here of fiscal year dates and then calendar year dates. And there's one reason for that, and that's because I asked for that, because I think it gives a better picture of where we're trying to head. The logical question may come in is, well, you want to achieve 50% by December 31st of 2027. Well, of course, that is what we have out here. But that uphill climb at first will be much tougher than the sustained plan. I suspect that the other 3 months would come in a little bit easier as we navigate through some of this reserve strategic funding plan. So this has again gone to the finance committee with the recommendation to go to the executive committee. That was voted on this morning with their endorsement. And I want to thank obviously our team here, Dr. Newbill. So we're going to have a presentation by Ms. Shepherd, but at the end of that, I would hope that this esteemed body would recognize the great labor and wisdom of the finance committee and put this in. Should you not, then it will be Dr. Newbill's plan. Should you like it, it'll be my plan. But it is different than what we've seen in the past. And lastly, I want to say this. I think with a plan in place, this will also help the commission make decisions as it comes to future expenditures. Much like you do in many other financial plans, when you use this as a benchmark for what you need to have in reserves, when a possible expenditure comes in, I think this will help kind of have some light on whether we should make that decision or not. And I'll use one example, and it was a number of years ago, but we rented this space. There was a very robust discussion. There were other spaces that we looked at and whittled them down to 3, then we whittled them down to 2. And this obviously came with a higher rent, and there was some discussion in the executive committee on what that might look like. Some of us did not support that in the executive committee, but we said, hey, if this is going to be the plan and it works when it comes out to the full commission. So it was a split vote in the executive committee, and then it was a unanimous vote at the commission. But as we're looking at, hiring folks or replacing individuals or contracting for work, if you always go back and look at kind of what you have in your savings account, it might help you in real time decide whether that expenditure is really a priority or not. So this will not be painful. It'll be a little uncomfortable, but I believe that the first half of the hill to climb will be the toughest part, and it is achievable. And recognize that there's some fluidity in that 50-50, but that's where we think that we need to be now. And as time goes on, maybe that changes a little bit up or down, and those 50s move respectively with that up or down. So this time I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Shepherd, and then we're happy to take any questions. But thank you for the time, and thank you, Madam Chair, for the meetings and the phone calls that you and I've had either face to face or pull-ups down at the General Assembly where this was not on our agenda, but we happened to pass each other and had these conversations, and to the folks on the Finance Committee who've put a lot of time and effort in this. And I want to thank everybody on this commission for their time, because I know this kind of got dropped on you, because we started talking about this in earnest in December, and then moved very, very quickly with our executive team here to get this review for a possible decision. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis, and good morning. I just wanted to provide just a little more context. So Mr. Davis and Ms. Schickle and I have been talking a lot over the last few months and with the Finance Committee just about general financial strategic planning for the agency. And so this is a first priority for us, is to get a little more liquidity in those operating reserves. I'll share also just a little more context around the current balance sheet. So the current cash right now, which includes operating and reserve cash, is just over $1 million, and overall receivables are $1.7 million. Our finance team has been working really closely with our program managers to really strengthen our relationship, both internally and with our partners externally. And so our cash and receivables today are in really good shape. So a little more context around these reserves. We want to move from the current policy, which is silent on the balance of cash in those reserves, and it's a flat number. So it's $1 million. The current policy speaks to $1 million balance. We want to move to a rolling balance based on 3 months or 6 months eventually, and ultimately, and 3 months for this first targeted date, balancing cash and receivables in that 50-50 allocation. So right now on the screen on that bottom right, the current mix is that 12 to 88, just of the reserve portion only. Again, as I mentioned, we do have strong cash receivable or cash balances right now, and then targeting that 50-50 split for the reserve portion. That capture what we spoke to. Happy to take any questions.
If I'm not over my question quota, I've got something.
You've got one more.
Thank you. The proposed 50-50 for the cash deposits, what are the current interest rates, and how would you mix the investments, or the cash would go in some investments? What term or renewals terms, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, or 6 months?
We would maintain our current investment policy and strategy at this time. We see no change to that. So thank you, but yeah, it's a great question. They could and would come back and we look at it, but there would be currently no change to investments held.
Okay, would this require a policy statement to ratify?
This is a policy statement. Yes, sir. This would be,
It's a dumb
once we do
question.
this,
I'm gonna have one dumb question.
yes, sir. No, it's not a dumb question, Mr. Warner, because we have on here strategic financial planning, which gave, and we talked about that last week. We actually talked about the word policy. I like the word policy, so it's a very, very prudent question. And it's smart because I had the same one last week. I'd like to bring it forward as a policy, discuss that with counsel, Mr. Gregory. And so instead of a plan, we'd like to see it as a policy. So thank you for asking that.
Anyone else have questions? No? Okay, if there are no more questions, I would entertain a motion to waive the 10-day notice requirement to take action this morning, given that this has significant implications on our FY budget preparations, and to approve the fund balance reserve policy amendment.
Madam Chair. I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Great, thank you so much. All right, and then less exciting business is our consent agenda, which is made up of the November 13th meeting minutes, the December 4th joint annual meeting minutes, the financial statements, and the intergovernmental and environmental reviews, which all can be found within your informational packet here. I would like to approve those as a block, if anyone would like to move the approval.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Well, thank you so much. That was painless. And then we have the comprehensive climate action plan. Do you want to speak to that?
Nicole, take it away. All right. All right, I understand we are behind time, so I'm gonna try to catch us up a little bit. We're zipping through this, but there is time for questions at the end if I go a little bit too fast. But I'm really excited to be back in front of this group for the second time to provide an update on our finalized air quality plan, which is to be considered today for incorporation into our strategic vision, serving the healthy environment pathway. Very quick reminder about what this is, where we're coming from. This was a plan we created using funds provided by the federal government that were provided for nationwide climate action planning. We wanted to leverage those funds to generate some data for our localities that we didn't have before on regional air quality. And also co-create a vision for where we would like emissions and air quality to be as a region in the future. Give our localities a game of actions that they could go ahead and take to improve air quality. So since the last time I spoke to this group in September, we have since completed the third and final public comment period, so it's 3 total. We also did 3 more rounds of edits of the plan with locality staff, so a total of 4 rounds of edits, localities. We completed the appendices, and then at the very beginning of December, we submitted the final plan to EPA and it was approved. So the final plan includes quite a few major sections. I'm just going to run through these. Starts with a summary of the impacts of climate change that we already see in the region, extreme heat, flooding, agricultural stress, etc. And then highlights great progress that our localities and regional partners are already making to improve air quality and climate resilience. We present the regional emissions inventory using 2022 as a base year. And then also a co-pollutant emission inventory along with that. The business as usual projections are model results that show where emissions are expected to go looking out to 2050, assuming everything in 2022 stayed the same. So no advances in technology, no changes in policy, trends that were present then continue. That's business as usual. The majority of the plan is the selection of the reduction measures. And then after that, we model what those emissions might look like in the future under a implementation scenario. And I'll get to that further in a minute. We also provide a co-benefit analysis, which explores the economic, public health, and general resilience benefits that we would expect to see come with implementation of the plan. And we also discussed next steps. So there's 6 sectors of the economy that the measures all cover. I won't read that just to save a little bit of time. But in totality, we present 22 voluntary measures for reducing air pollution. And each of those measures, as is appropriate, includes a cost effectiveness estimate, a pollution reduction potential, and possible output metrics that we could use to measure our progress going forward. They also include more specific key actions, and in total, there's 181 near-term and long-term key actions that could be taken by a variety of actors in the region, including our local governments, but also the role of the state, nonprofits, and private industry, private business. The next steps section, this is a summary. This is not everything. This is not the exhaustive list of next steps, but the primary action we'll be taking next is helping our localities create mini action plans, which I call MAPs, which are bite-sized, short-term portions of those 22 measures and 181 key actions that resonate with them, that localities say, we're going to work on this stuff in the next 2 to 5 years on this timeline, et cetera. Just customizing it for themselves. We'll also be setting up some systems to try to track progress against all of those measures going forward. And both of these will set us up really well in 2027 when we are required to provide a status report to the EPA. All right, very quickly, this is a snapshot of those emissions projections. So you're looking at a wedge chart. The very top line of that wedge chart presents the business as usual scenario. So again, that's 2022 as the base year. Under that scenario, we would expect emissions to reduce or decline by 43% by 2050. Then those colored bands that you see underneath, kind of in the middle of the graph, those represent the reduction potential of the measures included. And then, my computer battery is running low, so I'm really gonna go fast. The bottom line represents the full implementation scenario. So if we were to enact every single measure to the maximum capacity possible, we could see a 93% reduction in air pollution by 2050. So given all of this information, our steering committee unanimously agreed to 3 targets. The first is to achieve a 22% reduction over 2022 levels by 2035. That is just tracking that business as usual line. They also elected to add an additional goal of adding 2 gigawatts of solar power to the region by 2050. This is non-prescriptive, so that could be achieved by any combination of rooftop solar on private homes, commercial solar, community solar, or large-scale utility-size projects. And then the main goal is to try to reach net zero by 2050. Next, come on, don't die on me yet. So, I have one more slide. So in conclusion, our plan advances the healthy environment pathway, and it also reinforces the strategic and resilient infrastructure as well as the strong economy pathways. And with that, staff respectfully recommends adoption of the air quality plan as a core guiding document, incorporating it into the pathways to the future regional strategic plan.
So thank you. That is fantastic. I know you've done a phenomenal job working with all the stakeholders involved. So thank you for your commitment. Anybody have any questions? Other than how many words can she say in one breath? Well, thank you, Nicole. And I would like to entertain a motion to approve the resolution adopting the air quality plan for incorporation into the regional strategic plan pathways to the future. I'll move. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you so much, Nicole.
Thank you all very much.
And I will turn it over to Martha for our mission moment.
Thanks. So finance has certainly been a theme this morning, and I wanted to continue with that to recognize 8 members of our core implementation team who supported the migration to our new financial management system. It is a larger undertaking than I think I would have ever imagined to be able to migrate from this disparate set of systems and spreadsheets and things in people's heads that we never had any way to be able to kind of track and share anymore into a comprehensive financial management system. So for those that are in the room, if you all would stand, please, so our board members can see how many people have been involved in this effort. Been just a tremendous opportunity for some of our staff members to learn more about our operating model and how the finances flow through the organization, and have been a tremendous opportunity for us to build an infrastructure that is informed by the knowledge of our staff members. I'm excited to not have, Lauren and I had this conversation yesterday, for many of us not to carry this material around in our heads. You know, we talk a lot, maybe this is a little bit in jest, but we talk a lot about technology replacing people. And this is an example of where technology is going to free up our people to do the work that we were hired to do and not be able to carry all of this data in our head. And so this is a tremendous opportunity for us to build bandwidth. Lauren pulled a report for me yesterday that showed where our staff have spent time year to date through February 10th. That's incredible. For 10 years, I've been at this agency and I've been able to see reports through 45 days ago. The ability to be able to make decisions in this kind of very dynamic environment based on yesterday's, you know, up to yesterday's information is just so critical. And I can't tell you how exciting it is. And I know that sounds kind of silly, but this is just a huge step forward for this agency. Not necessarily maybe to modernize, but to bring us into kind of current business practices. And it's just really exciting. We're going to be able to bring more timely information to you. We're going to be able to deliver on the results of this policy that you just amended. And it's very exciting. And I'm very, very thankful to the folks that have led this initiative to make it possible. So appreciate it.
Thank you, Martha. Thank you to the entire team. And I know Dr. Newbill had to jump off to something else, but she wanted to make sure that I shared her thanks with you as well. This is an incredible achievement for the organization. So thank you all for your hard work. And last but certainly not least, I would like to invite, I don't know if you want to do it from your seat or from the podium, Reverend Cooper to give our exciting update, our regional update on Henrico County. And for the members, localities who haven't presented yet, I would seek a volunteer to go next after Reverend Cooper.
I didn't volunteer, I was asked, so let's be clear.
I'm an advocate of voluntelling,
Yeah,
so I appreciate that.
My colleague, Mr. Rokas, is always willing to go first, so thank you. Well, good morning again. Good morning, everyone. I'm blessed to chair an elected body for local government that is consistently thinking outside the box to solve complex problems in our community. In fact, early this week, I was reflecting on this notion that I was considering what I wanted to talk about briefly this morning. Perhaps I'm most proud of in Henrico and excited to continue in 2026 and beyond is what we've done in the affordable housing space, is very apropos this morning. Pictured on this slide is what we still lovingly call the new and vastly improved Glenwood Farms. The name of this development actually changed to Clover Spring being redeveloped. Next slide, please. Through our EDA, Henrico provided developers with $11 million in a loan to kickstart this project. And we also served as a fiscal intermediary to support Virginia Housing's investment. Henrico also offered tax rebates, demolition reimbursements, expedited planning reviews, and water and sewer connection credits. Because of this dilapidated nature, rents at the old Glenwood Farms were more affordable than most other communities. So residents often did not speak up when conditions were horrific, but were fearful of being evicted. With this in mind, working with the Neighborhood Resource Center to provide individual finance coaching and support of private and foundation dollars and other partners, residents will not only be housed, but also equipped with financial education and career tools that they need to sustain their place in this new Clover Spring community long term. We are raising $4 million to gap rent assistance for up to 3 years. Next slide. Quick timeline. What's most important here is the last November construction began on this new development. Next slide, please. Continuing on theme of improving affordable housing conditions, the county's largest public housing community, St. Luke, has new ownership, which we're really excited about to continue to improve upon the community and the residents that live there. Involved communities plans to implement controlled access and property maintenance programs and a new security system. Next slide, please. Several years ago, in response to fast-paced growth of home prices, The county established an employee home purchase assistance program, which has proven to be a powerful tool in helping our employees achieve home ownership for the first time. So far, more than $1.4 million has been invested into down payment and closing cost assistance, allowing the average participant to purchase a home with less than $7,000 out of their pocket. The program has supported the purchase of 58 homes across all 5 magisterial districts, strengthening our workforce and our neighborhoods. The program has served a range of employees from fire, police, public works, mental health, school staff across education, nutrition, counseling, and many more who serve our communities every day. Next slide. And then, of course, there's the mighty Affordable Housing Trust Fund, created with the pledge of the first $60 million of data center real estate tax revenue that buys down the cost of homes for first-time home buyers. In partnership with PHA, since the launch of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, 13 developments have been approved for funding to create 383 new affordable homes. We're now halfway to our ambitious goal of 750 homes. This program has received national recognition, including strong interest in Congress as to how this program can be replicated. Next slide. Here are some examples of what's possible in 5 specific communities. Take Parkside, for example. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund has brought down the price of a market $322,000 home to $198,000. Fairways from $423,000 to $320,000. Ladies and gentlemen, we are making the American dream possible for hundreds of families. Next slide. I mentioned a moment ago that we have 383 homes approved. As you can see, in 2026, we're going to be busy with PHA for new affordable homes. We're halfway to our goal. I fully suspect that next year at this time, we'll be awfully close to our $60 million commitment. Next slide. I'll end my comments on Henrico and our affordable housing efforts with the new zoning category approved last year by my peers on the Board of Supervisors called R5B. This new tool in the tool belt allows for increased density for single-family detached homes with a maximum of 10 units per acre, minimum $3,000 square foot lots, and a front yard that's around 30 feet wide. The idea is that more single-family homes can be built on less land, which makes affordable more affordable. Last slide. As you can see, Henrico is more than committed to housing affordability, putting our money where our mouth is. On behalf of the Board of Supervisors, we are so proud to be leaders in the space. Thank you all.
For the record, I did not tell him to do his presentation on something that so nicely complemented our conversation, but I appreciate it very much. Thank you, Reverend Cooper and the whole Henrico County team. Does any locality want to go next in this? Powhatan? Okay, thank you. We look forward to hearing from Powhatan at our next meeting. Please note the change of meeting date to April 16th at 9:30 back here in this room. The executive committee will meet at 8:30 immediately before that. And with that, any last comments before I entertain a motion to adjourn? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Second.